This man was reborn as a white snake deep within 1,000 mountains. In order to adapt to the harsh survival environment of the forests and mountains, she had to use animal instinct to suppress humanity. Every day, she was either dancing for eagles or grabbing rabbits to practice boxing. After 20 years, she finally became the overlord of her domain. For 2 decades, eating raw meat and drinking blood, constantly fighting for survival against natural enemies. There was no longer any mood for sentimentality. Scenes like picturesque fairylands are only real on the surface. The forest is brutal. The white snake summed up 4 rules of survival. First, use enough patience to wait for an opportunity. Second, attack the weak and avoid the strong. Third, regardless of whether the enemy is weak or strong, one must fight with all their strength and be cruel and bloodthirsty when attacking. Fourth, when faced with danger, run for your life with all your might. Relying on these survival rules, from breaking out of her shell to struggling to survive up to her current length of 4 meters, all kinds of natural enemies were always lurking nearby, including the goshawk with a wingspan of 2 meters that was circling overhead. Still remembering that time when she was careless and nearly got torn apart by its talons. There were also the wildcats roaming nearby, and the most fearless of all animals, the honey badger. Countless battles and struggles against natural enemies have made the white snake more cold-blooded and ferocious. Even when covered in wounds and dripping with blood, it still frantically seizes every opportunity, using its 2 sharp fangs to pierce the opponent's skin and inject venom. The snake's body is well proportioned. Its venom is not very potent. It does not have the triangular head and thin neck characteristic of venomous snakes. More often, it relies on constriction to strangle its prey. Venom is merely auxiliary. The weather in the mountains is like a child's face, changing at a moment's notice. In an instant, dark clouds gather. Thunder and lightning rage. Lightning runs wild. All beasts tremble in fear. When the lightning finally ceases, heavy raindrops patter to the ground. In a flash, a downpour begins. The white snake moves a bit further inside. The rope is soaked by the rain. Rainwater can lower body temperature. Snakes are cold-blooded animals. Unlike mammals, they cannot maintain a constant body temperature. It waits for the rain to stop and the sun to come out. Then it must go outside to bask in the sun. To raise its body temperature and remain agile, staring outside the cave, it coils up in a circle, motionless in the rain. With the white snake's severe myopia and terrible hearing, it had just missed an incredible scene that other animals had seen with perfect clarity. Wispy clouds, dark as ink, coiling without dispersing. Thunder and lightning struck a mountain peak with all their might, as if fighting for their lives. A black and yellow striped creature, a tiger with a golden forehead and white underside, stood atop the mountain peak, roaring its tiger's cry amidst the thunder and lightning. Filled with anger and unwillingness to yield, no matter how severe the wounds, it remained proud, refusing to bow its head. Lightning as thick as a bucket struck down, wounds charred black, blood streaming down. It collapsed and could no longer stand, until finally there was no more sound from it. That stubborn, unyielding figure was deeply etched into the eyes of the other animals. The confused beasts and birds didn't understand. They didn't understand why the tiger was struck by lightning, and at the same time, they grew afraid of the sky above their heads. This was only natural. Wild animals all have the instinct to seek good fortune and avoid danger. Those instincts drive them away from peril. Only a few animals gazed on with intense focus. In the misty white rain, the roars of wild beasts upon the soaring mountain peaks echoed one after another. The 100,000 great mountains stretched endlessly without borders. Poisonous insects, fierce beasts, miasmic vapors, and malice. Harsh environment, usually rarely visited by humans. The unique environment has nurtured countless creatures and rare herbs. Areas where spiritual energy gathers will give birth to certain special medicinal materials, which contain the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the essence of the sun and moon. Therefore, they often attract wild beasts to devour them. One day, a white snake roamed the mountain forest hunting, unaware that a change in its serpent life was approaching. Beasts and birds possess an ability that requires no learning or experience. They distinguish good from bad things solely by instinct, as if guided and driven by some invisible force. This is called instinct. The white snake flicked its tongue, lightly tasting the air to search for the scent of prey. Suddenly, a scent particle from a young snake deeply stimulated its olfactory system. It was a smell it had never encountered before, a faint fragrance that made the snake feel comfortable. It was as if a voice in its mind told the white snake, "Go quickly and eat that thing." Drawing upon the genetic memory deep within its soul, the white snake confirmed it was not a trap. After hesitating slightly, its body wriggled, following the scent. Swimming across a small stream, the snake, driven by instinct, kept flicking its tongue to catch scents as it slithered quickly. From the smell, it wasn't far. After crawling up the hillside, it found a pit in the mountain stream halfway up the slope. There was a small puddle about 1 square meter in size. It spotted the tender green grass beside the puddle. The little plant was entirely emerald green, like glass. Digestive fluid involuntarily dripped from the corner of its mouth. Without almost any hesitation, it opened its mouth wide, pulled out the green grass, roots and all, and swallowed it whole. Then the white snake felt a burning heat in its belly. Its vision went black and it passed out. In truth, that green grass wasn't a weed, nor was it some rare celestial herb. It was merely a plant that had grown for many years, a nourishing tonic with potent medicinal effects. It happened to grow in a place where spiritual energy converged, of superior quality. What did the white snake know of such things? It only knew eating shrimp was beneficial. Moreover, if it didn't eat it, other fierce beasts might follow the scent and come to fight for it. It was dangerous to be unconscious in the mountain forest. Fortunately, the small puddle was hidden halfway up the hillside, in a secluded spot. The sun set, the moon rose. After being unconscious for a day, the white snake's tail twitched slightly as it slowly woke up. Upon waking, it silently cursed itself for being careless. Fortunately, it was not poisoned. It also felt a tight restraint all over its body, uncomfortable and tense. The white snake, having experienced several molting sessions before, knew it was about to grow bigger and longer again. It slithered down the mountain, returning to its old nest among the pile of stones. Crawling into the jumble of rocks, it pressed hard against the sharp edges of the stones to scrape itself. Snake scales are the outermost keratin layer of the skin, very tough, able to prevent the loss of moisture from the body. It does not grow along with the body's growth. The old snake skin must be shed in order to become larger. The white snake was somewhat puzzled. It had been less than a month since the last shedding. How had it grown larger again? First, the skin on the head came off, using rough edges to continue scraping. Bit by bit, the old skin was peeled off from the head to the torso. Finally, the skin between the tail was shed. The entire shedding process was complete. The white snake, possessing human intelligence, used its tail to curl up the old skin and hide it in a crevice between the rocks. This is done to avoid attracting the baby's attention. Molting is very dangerous, not to mention predators lurking nearby. If the old skin cannot be shed completely, it may very well lead to death. It also consumes a lot of nutrients. Many snake catchers take advantage of the stiffness and docile temperament of snakes during molting to catch them. Otherwise, the white snake wouldn't have crawled into a pile of rocks. Exhausted, it falls asleep again. The next day, the white snake finds its scales whiter, more beautiful, and longer than before. From head to tail, a full 5 meters. In this forest, it is already quite a behemoth. A larger body means greater combat power. The white snake does not know its own limit. In any case, bigger is better. The weather is always fairly nice. It slides out of its cave to continue hunting. The 100,000 mountains are difficult to cultivate, unsuitable for human survival. The harsh environment keeps it sparsely populated. Precisely because of this, it has also become a place longed for by poor herbalists. Carrying various tools and insect repellents, one after another, they venture deep into the mountains to earn a meager income to support their families. Many people never made it out. Between the valleys lay a pond hundreds of meters in circumference, small in size but deep in water. Beside the water was a stretch of moss-covered cliff. A man carrying a medicine basket on his back, looking to be in his 30s, was clinging to the cliff, gathering herbs. His left hand tightly grasping a vine, his right hand prying a whole herbal plant from a crevice in the rock, carefully placing it into the basket. He held the vine and slowly sidestepped to another spot. After spotting a plant in a hollow in the rock, the herb gatherer was delighted. This trip deep into the mountains for Dendrobium candidum was a huge gain. With the money from selling it, he could even buy a bolt of cloth for his wife to make clothes. The delighted herb gatherer began picking the Dendrobium candidum, unaware that the vine in his hand had been severely worn down by the rocks. The herb gatherer only felt his left hand go empty, then tumbled backward. Thought he was done for. Plop! Water splashed everywhere. Poor folk who live year-round in the mountains are mostly somewhat water-tempered. The man wanted to swim to the shore, but just as he had rolled down the cliff, arm injured, unable to exert strength, struggling to stay afloat, unable to swim. This greatly worried the man. "Help! Save me!" The cry for help echoed through the valley. Even knowing it was impossible for anyone to be nearby, he instinctively called out with all his might, desperate to survive. In the distance, the white snake lifted its head. What was that strange sound just now? Seeing nothing unusual, it lowered its head and continued crawling, searching for prey. In truth, the cry for help was very loud, but reptiles, like snakes, primarily sense the world through vibrations, so it hadn't clearly heard the desperate plea. Not until the white snake reached the pool's edge did it use its infrared sensing to detect the figure bobbing up and down in the water. Through the infrared view, it recognized that as a human being. In its 2 decades of life, the white snake had never once encountered a human. It had once believed this world to be devoid of people. The sight of the drowning man stirred long-buried memories deep within its soul. In that very moment, the herb gatherer's struggles grew increasingly feeble, slowly sinking into the water. In a daze, just as the herb gatherer thought he would surely die, he saw in the water a massive white snake swimming toward him. It was indeed the herb gatherer, trapped in a deep mountain pool, finding no help but a giant snake instead. A pity for the elderly and young waiting at home beneath the water. The white snake twisted its body, quickly swam to the herb gatherer. The snake's tail coils around his shoulder, pulling hard toward the shore. After a moment, the man who fell into the water lies by the shore, coughing out water. Finally, he sits up abruptly, taking deep breaths. Vaguely remembers a large snake dragging him away, waking up yet on the shore. Where is that giant snake? Looks up as thick as a bull's rim. A tongue in front, a scream, only then causing a fluster, panic and step back. But behind him is a cliff face, nowhere to retreat. That white snake did not move, and it even looked at him with a contemptuous gaze. Yes, contempt. The herb gatherer was sure that Snake was sneering at his loud outcry. Through the man's clothing and hairstyle details, the white snake recognizes him as an ancient person. Yellow skin, black hair. Eastern face, the weaving technique is very crude. The attire and hair are somewhat similar to the Qin and Han style, meaning this is an ancient world. After gazing for a long time, the white snake turns and leaves. For some reason, the herb gatherer seemed to feel that the snake had let out a sigh. Very eerie. The white snake was merely feeling sentimental. A snake is a snake. No matter what it was in its past life, it's all in the past now. After seeing the man, its heart was not greatly stirred. Perhaps it was the passage of 20 years. That made it leave the past behind. The reason it saved the man was nothing but the lingering trace of humanity stirring inside. After all, he was the first person it had seen. Carrying a hint of commemorative significance, it finally let the man breathe a sigh of relief as it examined the wound on his arm and found herbs to treat it. After bandaging the wound, it noticed that the bleeding was gradually lessening. It seemed they wouldn't be able to make it out today. The basket was lost and with it the provisions, just as hunger became unbearable. The white snake returned once more, dropping a strangled pheasant, then turning to leave. The herb gatherer stared in astonishment, looking at the food on the ground, then at the white snake retreating into the distance. He hurriedly knelt down to kowtow, muttering under his breath. It was unclear what he was saying. The white snake thought the rescue was over, but unexpectedly, days later, it saw that same herb gatherer again, his tongue hanging high, gazing at the verbose herb gatherer across the way with cold, serpentine eyes. He first took out a few cooked eggs and placed them on the ground, then clasped his hands together and bowed 3 times, spoke at length saying many things about gratitude for saving his life and so on, then said that if something happened to him, his wife and children at home wouldn't be able to survive. Actually, the white snake wanted to say, if you die, there will be other men who support your wife and beat your children, but she couldn't speak, unable to voice the words. Finally, he said something else, about gathering herbs in these mountains, asking for much protection. The white snake was speechless. She herself was cautious even in the mountains, not knowing who protects whom. Where would she have time to protect you? Unable to eat the eggs meant for her, she turned and left. She was a snake, he was a human. Whether there was a favor or not, she could never casually trust humans. What if he had poisoned the eggs? In human eyes, a snake is just food. Snake gall can be used as medicine. Snake meat can be made into soup. Snake skin can be made into decorations. A body 5 meters long was enough to provoke human greed. She absolutely must not use cheap trust to put herself in danger. The herb gatherer saw the white snake turn and leave without touching the egg. He thought the snake just didn't eat cooked food, so he had no choice but to pick up the egg. He shouldered his herb basket and headed up the mountain to gather herbs. He was actually quite clever. Knowing the white snake wouldn't bite him, he gathered herbs nearby. You see, this whole area was the white snake's hunting ground. With no other venomous snakes around, all things considered, the herb gatherer was still blessed. It was just in a different way. From then on, the herb gatherer became a regular in these mountains. The white snake coiled on the valley trees by the cliff, curiously observing this bold human collecting medicinal herbs. It would even deliberately scatter herb seeds to cultivate seedlings. If they occasionally met, he would act as if they were old friends, sitting down and chattering on and on, saying that he had picked a lot of herbs recently, enough to feed his whole family, and that he must properly thank her. All this rambling really annoyed the snake. Who the hell would be interested in that? In an era with no entertainment, gossip was really just the same few stories repeated over and over. The man seemed to forget whose territory he was on. The white snake thought to herself, before half a year had passed in a daze, the fruits on the tree were still green and unripe. Now they are fully ripe. It never snows in the 100,000 Great Mountains. Although the grass and trees remain green in winter, the temperature still drops. When the temperature drops, snakes become sluggish. They hunt less. Over this period, they have already stored plenty of fat. To prepare for hibernation, there is something as important as eating: cultivation. Lately, the white snake has developed a new habit. That is when the sky is faintly bright, and mist fills the mountain valley. She climbs to the top of the cliff, facing the sea of clouds, breathing in and out the starlight, while the purple air rises in the east. The time when heaven and earth's spiritual energy is abundant is the best time to refine chi. Legend says that animals can absorb spiritual energy and the essence of the sun and moon, but she knows nothing about the specifics of cultivation. She simply follows her instinct, coiling on the huge rock and raising her tongue high, opening her mouth to inhale and exhale towards the mist. This is an ability she gained after growing long after consuming the magical medicine. Swallowing clouds is still too far-fetched, but breathing in and out the mist in the valley is quite easy as the morning sun rises. The mist in the mountains carries the most refined essence of heaven and earth. After snakes learn to cultivate, the first thing they probably master is breathing clouds and mist. Legend has it that snakes carry the bloodline of dragons, though it's very faint. People often see giant snakes coiled on mountain peaks, rocks, or cliffs, inhaling and exhaling toward the morning mist. It is said that after snakes become spirits, they summon heavy rain. In fact, what people witness is the object created by the snake absorbing mist. Summoning wind and rain is a power only flood dragons possess. Snakes can, at best, only swallow mist. There are many tales about snakes sucking objects from a distance. Legend has it that snakes can draw frogs to jump into their mouths automatically. The truth remains to be analyzed. There was once a real incident. In a remote mountain village, a villager saw a fellow young man continuously hovering up and down in front of a low cliff, over 10 feet high, as if he were playing on a trampoline. The young man seemed to find it very amusing, and even called out to the villager to come and try it. The villager was terrified, because on that cliff there was a giant snake, its mouth open, inhaling toward Xiaohu, but lacking in strength. Every time I inhale halfway, my strength is exhausted, and the small flame drops again. Repeatedly, the white snake raises its tongue, inhaling and exhaling. The mist within half a meter's distance is drawn into its abdomen. Then it expels the stale air. Diligently and steadily, it nurtures the spiritual energy within its body to grow stronger little by little. The mist-shrouded mountains and sea of clouds conceal immortal mysteries. The white snake raises its head to swallow the spiritual energy. At the cliff's edge, a massive white snake rises high. Facing the ascending white mist, it inhales and exhales. After a long period of absorption, once the mist dissipates, it stops absorbing when the sun is about to come out. Twisting its body, it descends the mountain. Prolonged direct sunlight exposure will raise its body temperature. The greatest trouble is being exposed on the mountaintop, easily drawing the attention of malevolent yin forces. There is no way around it. This pure white body is far too conspicuous, unlike those flashy snakes, which are safer. Arriving at the foot of the mountain, it sees a herbalist who has just entered the mountains, his entire body drenched by the morning dew. This man rattles on every day, extremely annoying like a pestilent snake. Through the herbalist's ramblings, the white snake learned that this place is the 100,000 Great Mountains. After getting familiar with it, he not only talked about family matters, but even pried into the family backgrounds of the neighbors. The white snake had already begun to consider whether to poison him just for some peace and quiet. Sure enough, the moment they met, he heard that man rambling on and on. He could only walk away directly without looking back. In the past 6 months, the white snake had never eaten any food offered by the herb gatherer. The talkative man, as always, bowed towards the white snake's retreating back, then picked up his tools and went to tend to his own herbal garden. 6 months had passed, and the herbs in the garden were growing wonderfully. The seedlings he had collected back then had all matured. 2 of them were even worth 12 silver pieces. When the weather turned cooler, he could dig them up. He would sell them, buy fabric with the money to make new clothes for his child, and even buy a goat for milk. Still, the herb gatherer's mind was full of ways to improve his family's living conditions. He crouched in the herbal garden, muttering to himself, a blissful smile spreading across his stubble-covered face. Deep in the mountains, with a safe spot for herb gathering and his own private little garden, he absolutely had no idea that his actions had already drawn someone's attention. Many other villagers in the mountains also made a living by collecting herbs. When everyone was struggling to get by, everyone felt balanced. When someone suddenly gathered many herbs and earned more money, it easily made others jealous, especially after venturing deep into the perilous 100,000 mountains for 6 consecutive months, and still managing to return with gains. The jealous suspected he had stumbled upon a treasure trove in the mountains, with an endless supply of herbs. Finally, someone couldn't resist the temptation, called together friends and relatives and began plotting. In ancient times, murder for money was not uncommon. One day, a herbalist said goodbye to his wife and children, shouldered his herb basket, and entered the mountains, failing to notice 3 sneaky figures following behind him. At dawn, the white serpent engaged in its usual practice of exhaling mist and skillfully headed down the mountain after sunrise. When it was still 300 meters away from the herb garden, its heat-sensing organs suddenly detected 3 blazing humanoid shapes inside the garden. The image composed of infrared rays left no room for deception. The white serpent was very angry. It had been kind enough to allow him to collect herbs on its territory, only for him to bring so many people in. Did he truly consider the 100,000 mountains a mere slope behind the village? The snake's innate cruelty kicked in, and it accelerated its pace. It slithered down the mountain, intending to drive those humans away. If necessary, it could let them taste its venomous fangs. Hopefully, I brought the antidote herb. The enraged white snake charged down the mountain menacingly. At the foot of the mountain, at the source of the stream, the herb gatherer's mouth was smeared with blood, lying prone on the ground, gasping roughly. His hands clamped tightly onto the calf of a fellow villager, refusing to let go. This is mine. These herbs are mine. You can't take yours. No, you can't take mine. Is this mountain yours? This is our turf. You've got quite the nerve, daring to come steal herbs here. This is the herb garden I painstakingly planted. The burly man kicked him hard, trying to make him let go. But the guy held on for dear life, refusing to release his grip. To him, this herb garden was his entire family's lifeline. You're lying! This is mine! Don't you dare touch it! The other 2 were beside themselves with joy, pulling out the herbs. The herb gatherer finally let go of the slim man's leg and lunged for the herbs, trying to stop them from stealing the medicinal plants, even with his life. He wrapped his arms protectively around the 2 most valuable herbs. No matter how much the 3 kicked and beat him, he refused to back down. The white snake arrived at the herb garden. This was the scene it beheld. The familiar herb gatherer was shielding the plants. 3 people were cursing and beating him while trying to take the herbs. It seemed that he had been misunderstood. But was it really okay to resort to violence over a few common herbs? In the end, the white snake, after watching the spectacle, decided to do something. Because that thin man's face was flushed red. His veins bulged. He frantically pulled out a hatchet used for clearing paths. With one slash, he struck the herb gatherer on the back. The hatchet was heavy. It wasn't particularly sharp. Even so, it still cut a gash into his back. Blood poured out. The other 2 were stunned. These were just ordinary mountain folk. They had never thought about killing anyone. The crazed thin man terrified them. Both were struck dumb, not knowing what to do or what they were afraid of. It's just us here. No one will know. And neither of you will know if the other actually goes ahead. The crazed thin man wanted to drag them both into it, just in case one of them rats him out later. Nini, what's your pick? Are you going to do it or not? Behind you! Behind you! The lean man habitually wanted to look back. Just at that moment, suddenly a musky stench stung his nose, making it uncomfortable. His neck tightened, as if something had gripped it. Then came a sharp pain. The attack speed of snakes when hunting is very fast. In the blink of an eye, they can launch 4 attacks. Studies have found that when a snake dashes toward its prey, it can endure 30 Gs of force and 30 times the acceleration of gravity. And the most elite humans, fighter pilots who have undergone strict military training, generally lose consciousness at speeds exceeding 10 Gs. From this, it is clear how powerful a snake's attack is. The white snake possesses front fangs, with 2 sharp fangs located at the front of its mouth. The upper jaw is usually folded and retracted, but when the mouth opens, the fangs snap out to strike the prey. In an instant, the muscles around the venom gland contract to inject venom. In fact, the venom of the white snake is not very strong. However, no matter how weak the venom, being bitten on the neck spells certain death. The snake reared up, with its mouth tightly clamped on the prey's throat. The lean man's eyes were wide open in terror, pulling hard with both hands. Uncontrollable convulsions all over the body. After only struggling for 5 or 6 times, the breathing gradually grew weak, finally fell to the ground. The snake venom had already entered the brain along the arteries. Even taking an immortal pill would be useless, released the skinny man. The white snake lifted its tongue and looked at the other 2. The 2 men came to their senses. Scared out of their wits, they scrambled and fled, tumbling away, running while crying and screaming loudly. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the forest. The white snake did not give chase. Killing for the first time brought no particular psychological activity. Such as guilt, it was very flat, as indifferent as killing any other prey. 20 years of eating raw flesh and drinking blood. Humanity had long been nearly worn away. Only then did the man look at the white snake in terror. It was not until now that he recalled the white snake before him was a venomous, savage beast. The snake's tail coiled around the thin man's foot hilt. I remember down the slope in the distance. There is a forest dotted with giant ant nests reaching up to 2 meters in height. Those ants should be very fond of the delivered meat. If the ants were infected with snake venom, tens of thousands dying could still relieve pressure on the surrounding animals. After all, the ants are too numerous and too formidable. As for eating humans, forget it. It feels too disgusting. Approaching the ant nest, he gave it a gentle push. The corpse rolled to the foot of the 2-meter-high ant nest. The violent vibration alerted the ants. In an instant, a pitch-black mass emerged. The white snake stayed at a distance, observing the ants, and thinking as well. A life disappeared. The corpse was visibly disassembled by the ants at a speed visible to the naked eye. Flesh and blood gradually vanished, leaving behind a bleached white skeleton. Then the skeleton was gnawed bit by bit by the ants. The process of a human going from existence to nothingness played out before their eyes. Returning to the herb garden at noon, the white snake noticed that the herb gatherer had become less talkative. From that day on, a look called fear had appeared in his eyes when he glanced at the white snake. He spoke less and less, until he said nothing at all. Perhaps he thought the emaciated man had been devoured that day. The white snake didn't mind this. The weather gradually turned cold. Migratory birds flew from the north to the 100,000 mountains for winter, bringing rare bustle to the forest. It made the man wait until the medicinal herbs were ripe, then dug them up and left. The small herbal garden slowly fell into neglect. The white snake returned to its former life, but it diligently practiced cultivation every day. As training time phased out, the frequency of hunting began to decrease. Snakes by nature can go a long time without hunting once they're full. Under normal circumstances, they eat once every half a month or 10 days. Gradually, the interval started to lengthen. Now it would only hunt again after 20 days. This was good news for the nearby birds and beasts. Every morning, it cultivated until the sun rose, then found a place to rest. When its body temperature dropped, it would bask in the sun to warm up. After all, snakes are cold-blooded. Their temperature changes with the environment. When the body temperature gets low, it needs to be adjusted in time. Time passed slowly. In the second year, the white snake didn't see the herbalist come to collect herbs. Slowly, the struggles and killings in the forest gradually covered the traces of anyone who had ever been there. The nearby area became the white snake's territory. Other beasts no longer fought or struggled with the white snake. The bobcat would observe from a distance every time they met, then turn and walk away. The big cat wasn't stupid. He clearly knew his own hunting limits. As for that fly that always hovered overhead, it also gave up. The white snake's 5-meter length had already posed a threat to it. If we're talking about who was happiest, it was when that ordinary honey badger moved out. I still remember one time after I accidentally met the honey badger. The world changed. That little guy was like a fully wound toy. I couldn't drive it away. From time to time, it would come close, bite a couple of times, then stop and attack again. I walked nearly 5 kilometers but still couldn't shake it off. It had an attitude like a dead pig not fearing scalding water. It only knew how to fight desperately. After this incident, the white snake finally understood what it meant to be shamelessly persistent. In the end, it only gave up when I jumped into a pool of water. Facts proved that honey badgers are not fearless with no brains. After seeing that the opponent's body length reached 5 meters, this shameless honey badger fled overnight. Yes, it slipped back into the burrow. Don't disappear without a trace, distressing the white serpent that wanted to strangle it. Afterward, the herb gatherer was only seen once. She just came to take a look, then left. The white serpent didn't know rumors had already spread, that there was a giant, spirit-like white serpent in the mountains. There were even rumors of a mechanism on the white serpent's head. Legend had it the white serpent relished eating people, so much so that this area once again saw few human tracks. Mountain villages love tales of spirits and monsters the most. Stories of foxes becoming immortals, collecting gold and such. Gradually it began. Some said they saw a giant white serpent in the mountains, spitting clouds and mist at the mountain peak. Others said they saw the white serpent transform into a dragon and ascend during a thunderstorm. These tales of mountain ghosts and goblins brought rare entertainment to the common folk. In the blink of an eye, 10 years have passed. The white serpent was still 5 meters long. It had not grown any further, but it kept swallowing mist every day, making it stronger and its physique more powerful. At the same time, its slick snake scales became whiter and more beautiful. In the past, a single glance brought fear. Now, looking at it, there was instead a peculiar kind of beauty. Triangular ripples kept spreading across the water pool in both directions, splashing water up noisily, slowly raising its tongue. After bathing, leisurely crawling ashore, climbing up to a giant, ancient ginkgo tree, thick enough for 5 or 6 people to wrap their arms around, took a rest. The ginkgo tree was very old. It appeared to be at least over 1,000 years old. The trunk coiled like a dragon, crouching like a tiger. The branches and leaves spread like a canopy. Beneath the tree, there was a giant luminous stone. The stone felt slightly cool to the touch. Only cold-blooded animals like snakes would enjoy clinging to it in summer. Suddenly, the resting white snake lifted its head, gazing into the distance, infrared heat-sensing organs, detecting a humanoid object approaching, opening its mouth, bearing venomous fangs in a vigilant posture, until it got close. Through its keen sense of smell, it realized it was an old acquaintance. The herb collector, just like 10 years ago, bowed in greeting upon meeting. 10 years' time had made this brave man venturing into the mountains to gather herbs look even more weathered. In ancient times, the living environment was harsh, with malnutrition and various social factors. Human life expectancy was generally short. Living past 50 is considered quite a long life. Countless people died before reaching 50. Wang Da, at over 40, had already aged into someone who looked like a 60-year-old. The white snake doubted whether that hunched body could still climb the cliff, to pick the Dendrobium officinale. After years apart, only upon meeting again did one realize someone had aged. The white snake was still the same as 10 years ago. 10 years. I never thought I'd see you again. The aged herb gatherer muttered to himself. The white snake flicked its tongue, gazing at this old man who no longer chattered endlessly. I've become a useless old fool. Can no longer earn money for the family. My son and daughter-in-law have to take care of me and my wife. She passed away in the spring the year before last. When there wasn't enough to eat, she wouldn't listen to advice. If she hadn't eaten the guanyin clay, she could have lived a few more days. After eating the clay, she only lived 7 more days. I know she did it to save food for the children. My son has started a family. They had a daughter. Honestly, deep down, I wished for a grandson. The Wang family can't be without an heir. The white snake listened quietly, listening to the herb gatherer rambling on and on. This old man, who had worked hard all his life to support his family, struggled his entire life, yet never managed to change the family's poverty. He doesn't understand why he is poor. The white snake hides in this ancient era, where class divisions have long been solidified and chaos reigns. The vast majority of the population can hardly live a good life. To put it bluntly, simply being alive is already a gift from those powerful noble families and aristocratic clans. Auski, people say a white dragon is cultivating here. I know they saw you. That woman from the Liu family even said you gave her a prophetic dream. Haha, speechless. When have I ever given anyone a dream? Besides, I don't even have the ability to do that. Under the ginkgo tree, the old man rambles on, talking to himself, speaking to a white snake. In the afternoon, the herb gatherer left. The white snake felt he might not have long to live. Its forked tongue could smell the scent of death on him. Perhaps he would be happy. After death, he could meet his wife again, and he could save his son's family some food. Suddenly, it wanted to seize the time to cultivate. The taste of death is unpleasant. The white snake did not want to die again. Snakes naturally prefer the shade, having no experience in cultivation. The white snake could only rely on memories from its past life to seek out that kind of cool, shady place. Tona happened to recall the small cliffside puddle where that spiritual medicine was devoured. Act on a whim, leave the ginkgo tree, quickly climb to the mountainside. The small puddle was still in the crevice above the rock. Fine streams of water converged into a small puddle. The water was clear, sweet, and pure. The white snake felt that this must be a good place for cultivation. Coiling itself into a circle, it raised its head to breathe and exhale. In the mountains, a white snake worked hard to absorb the essence of heaven and earth in order to survive. Several years later, after a mountain rain, clouds and mist churned like rivers. Vast mist surged and billowed like the Milky Way cascading from the heavens, crossing deep valleys, rolling over ridgelines, surging onward. In the boundless sea of clouds, a white snake stood atop a great boulder on the mountain peak, drifting and sinking in the sea of clouds for years, seizing every opportunity to cultivate by swallowing clouds and exhaling mist. Intuition told it this was right. The actual results also pleased the white snake. Cultivation gave it something to do in its solitary life. Snakes and rats, being oviparous, hatched from eggs, with no idea who their parents were, and never had any siblings either. No contact unless necessary. In severe cases, they might even fight. Since the white snake was born, it has lived in solitude, never approaching other snakes. It could be considered a homebody snake, having lived indoors for over 30 years. After finishing its breathing exercises, it descends the mountain carrying a pungent wind. Recently, the white snake has encountered trouble, and the situation is very strange. Somehow, large snakes always run into its territory and get close to it. They can't be driven away, and it gets annoyed. It has no choice but to rely on its size advantage, roughly flinging the large snakes away. But after flinging one away, another comes, endless. There's a large snake in front of it, dancing on its raised body. Wherever it goes, they follow. In anger, it bites down on the snake's head and flings it away with all its strength. Long after this phenomenon began, the white snake only then understood life was no longer possible, being disturbed while sleeping under the ginkgo tree. Even when going up the mountain to cultivate, it gets disrupted, unable to perform its breathing techniques. Drive one away and a crowd comes without end. Then 4 or 5 large snakes swim over. Helpless, it could only rely on its speed, far surpassing that of ordinary snakes, to quickly get away and flee to the other side of the mountain. More large snakes gathered around. The endlessly troubled white snake felt it should come up with a plan, gazing toward the direction where Wang Jin entered and left the mountain. On a whim, it wanted to go out and have a look, to see the human world, and see what ancient times were like. After all, having arrived in this thorn ancient era, if it didn't go experience it, it would hardly be worthy of its snake life. Of course, at the edge of the forest. Just looking from afar was enough. There was no need to leave the forest and put itself in danger, so off it went, with no belongings to hold it back, and no need to worry about food or shelter. It crawled out of the mountain along the faint scent of humans. 2 days after starting its new journey in an S-shaped slither, the further out it went, the more traces of human activity there were. For instance, under a large rock that could provide shelter from the rain, there were many signs of campfires, marks from chopping with firewood knives, and some simple traps. No large animals were basically seen in the outer areas, and the variety of animals was fewer, mostly just some pheasants, rabbits, foxes, and the like. Of course, there are rats everywhere, a constant presence. After a long while, he finally reached the edge of the woods. He also saw the village of this world. First impression, poor. Second impression, very poor. As the saying goes, poor enough to hear the sound of jingling coins. But in this place, even the jingling sound cannot be remembered. Below the hillside were a cluster of low, shabby thatched huts. By the stream in the valley, there were many rice paddies. 2 old men were idly, without much energy, working a water wheel to irrigate the rice paddies. A scrawny yellow dog ran across the fields. There were barely even a few mice. The place had only over 20 households with fewer than 100 people, the smallest village imaginable. He remembered the herb gatherer mentioning his son's family, but he didn't know them, nor could he go look for them. Forget it, he'd just take a casual look and return to the deep mountains. Maybe by then those big snakes would have calmed down, and so the white snake began its life of spying on others. Someone in the village noticed the abnormality nearby. You say this is truly strange. Yesterday, when I came back from the fields, scores of mice carrying their young ran out of the village in droves as if fleeing a disaster. Chickens and ducks won't return to their coops. Dogs bark incessantly. What a strange sign. a white snake observing humans on the back hill behind the village, originally planning to return deep into the mountains. But on the last day before leaving, they met a little girl. The girl was 6 or 7 years old, with her hair tied in double buns, wearing a coarse cloth dress washed to a faded white, hopping and skipping to the back hill to catch butterflies and pick flowers. Usually the back hill was very safe. There were hardly any animals. But today, an old wolf with a lame leg was wandering on the back hill. The old wolf was physically disabled, couldn't catch any prey. Its eyes were already flashing green with hunger, and that little human just happened to be both delicious and easy to catch. So without hesitation, it opened its wide mouth and pounced on the little girl. The plot played out just as expected. Just as the little girl was frozen in terror, her life hanging by a thread in the wolf's jaws, a flash of white light streaked by. The white snake rapidly coiled around the old wolf again and again at lightning speed.